Well, well, well. What's cooking? You are listening to another edition of the Sports Hub, live with Wayne and Clark. What is going on, Wayne? How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, sir. I'm very excited to see your festive spirit today, all the red and green. You got two little Christmas trees there.
Yeah, I got
Very
a nice little
festive.
Christmas. Yeah, I like to get a little festive here. Why not? Why not? I definitely enjoy it. I definitely enjoy it. What's going on with you? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good, rather uneventful. Some time with family, no major meltdowns. I call that a win. I will say that I was personally disappointed in that we're geared up for three football games. The best football game of the day is supposed to be at night. Ravens and Steelers. No football game. No Ravens and Steelers. Still no Ravens and Steelers. I was very upset about this.
Yeah, that we're definitely going to unpeel that onion, and we're going to unpeel a lot of sports onions in this episode of the Sports Hub live with Wayne and Clark. We've got a few things we want to talk about, but we're going to kick things off with a recap of last week's picks, and then we're also going to dive into NBA talk with a special guest, and we're going to continue on with a couple of different things from around the sports world, including the Mike Tyson and Roy Jones fight, and we're going to talk more about what our picks are this week. So this is an exciting episode, and I know I'm excited, and I know you are too.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So I would be remiss if we didn't start with some picks from last week, like you said. I want to know what happened to Tampa Bay.
So when you say what happened to Tampa Bay, let's give the audience a little bit of an idea of what went wrong, what went right. So again, I want to point out that I was incorrect in my pick. I did predict that the Bucks would pull an upset over the Chiefs. However, it did not happen. Doesn't mean that I was completely way off because it was a very close game. No one would have thought that it was a close game because of the way the game transpired in the first, not even 8 minutes, that there was already two scores by the Chiefs. So I'll take the hit on that one. I was off on it, but I did say, and I will go back and listen to the show that we had last week. I did say if anything happened, it had to do with the front line not protecting Brady. And once again, those offensive line woos continue.
I think we need to go back a little further because I think you're misremembering some things.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
On this show last week, we talked Buccaneers Rams at the time because they were the Monday Night Football. And you sat here in front of God and everyone, first of all, chose the Buccaneers as your NFC Super Bowl pick, and then predicted that they would win by 7 against the Rams. I correctly came in and predicted the Rams by 3, which is exactly what happened. So are you sticking with Tampa Bay as your NFC Super Bowl pick?
Well, first, let me just say, the NFL season continues. Last time I checked, we're not even near the playoffs. We have approximately 5 games left. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But the fact is that there's still plenty of football to be played. If you look at the mathematics, the Bucks have, in most probability, will make it to the playoffs, and then anything can happen, as you know, in the NFL. So, in my opinion, I'm sticking with what I'm saying. I have the balls to say, and part of my expression, I will stick by the Bucks going to the Super Bowl, and I continue to do that. And hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm sticking with it.
I just want to hear you tell me how right I was about the Rams game. You want to just give everyone a little, hey, you were right. I was wrong. You want to go ahead and lay that out?
Well, listen.
I just want to hear you say it.
Your pick was accurate. However, it was not like it was a blowout.
I didn't say it was going to be a blowout. I said the Rams would win by 3. They won by 3.
Okay, well, hey, listen.
Like it did.
And listen, the way I look at it, you win some, you lose some, and you know what? We didn't make it, but if it wasn't for the fact that the offensive line just completely shit the bed, I believe we'd be looking at a different situation right now and a different conversation. Well, but I'm a man. I can handle it. I'm going to take my lumps and we'll keep it moving.
Okay.
I was wrong. Clark was wrong. However,
Thank you. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted.
no problem. However, whatever makes you happy, Wayne. But however, let's not the fact that you predicted, and I did as well, that the Detroit Lions would beat up on the Baltimore Ravens. Right? Is that correct?
No. Lions did not play the Ravens this week. The Ravens were supposed to play
Who
the
did-
Steelers.
Remind me. Who did they play again? I forgot.
Let's go.
It was
back
it was so unmemorable.
Yeah, it's really bad. I've kind of blocked that game out of my mind now, and that's kind of embarrassing. Let's see. Who did they end up playing? Oh, damn.
Look, we
the
both
Panthers.
right.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
wait, they played the Panthers? No, they didn't play the Panthers.
Sorry,
Listen, this is a complete cluster fudge. I apologize.
Texans. They played
The Texans won. I apologize.
Right.
The Houston Texans. My apologies. Wayne, you should have known better.
I should have known
more
better.
prepared.
It's my fault. You're right.
They expect that from me. They expect that from me. They don't expect it from you.
I'll own that.
Yeah, you definitely need to own that.
So we both whiffed on that. Everyone got fired. That Matt Patricia gone. That experiment's done. There's a whole other conversation to be had that I don't want to get into, but we may need to revisit at some point. And it's the success or lack thereof of coaches who have coached under Belichick and then left and went elsewhere. That's a really good topic that we may have to revisit at some point, but it's not a great track record. What is very interesting to me right now is so the Buccaneers most likely will end up as a wild card at this juncture, which means that if they end up as the top, are you just on your phone texting? Is that what you're doing today? I'm watching you.
Nope.
I'm watching.
I am merely I've got fans that are texting me.
Oh, okay.
I've got my sources texting me.
Right.
And, so I want to make sure that I'm on top of all the latest news that's coming out.
Fair.
But listen,
I'll
focus.
So let's talk what's happening with the playoffs right now with the NFC. So Tampa Bay is going to be most likely a wild card in all likelihood. And Clark's screen went dark. I don't know if everybody else saw that, but that's fine. Whatever. That being said, they are going to most likely get the pleasure of opening the playoffs against whoever is the best of the shitty NFC East teams. Right now, looks like the Giants. It's weird because part of me doesn't think that a losing record team should get the privilege of being in the playoffs, but hell, if it ends up being Giants versus Buccaneers, I'm all in. Let's go Giants. Why not? I think that could be a really, really fun time. The other thing, big takeaway from this past weekend that we're kind of remiss if we don't at least mention is how the NFL is handling COVID. We talked a little bit about the Ravens and the Steelers game and how it's been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. It was originally supposed to happen to Thursday night. It got pushed. It had the entire Ravens backfield had COVID. Got pushed to Sunday. Then they were like, no, we're doing it Tuesday. And then just a few hours ago, they're pushing it to Wednesday with something like 20 positive COVID tests. My question here is what causes the NFL to say, okay, we're going to push that game, but not make them just go ahead and play it with who they have, but allow the Broncos to roll out a team against the Saints that didn't have a quarterback. They allowed a guy who was a practice squad wide receiver to play against another NFL team. Didn't postpone that one at all. We're like, tough luck. You're going in. Doesn't matter. But the Ravens, for some reason, were pushing. I'm not quite following the logic in that. So if someone wants to explain that to me in the comments, please do, because it doesn't make sense to me. The only explanation I can really even think of right now is that the Broncos apparently broke some of the protocols around the social distancing and whatnot. And I guess this is punishment. Like, hey, you're going to trot out this guy with no experience and be slaughtered. Why not? that's the only viable explanation that I realistically can even wrap my head around whatsoever. So those are my big takeaways. Is Tampa is not looking great right now. I keep hearing of tensions between Brady and Bruce Arians. I don't know how much stock I put in that, but I mean, that at least has to be discussed with them losing 3 straight. Someone is going to win the NFC East. Right now, it looks like the Giants, but whoever it is going to win it with around a 6-10 record, which blows my mind. But they're going to set themselves up for a showdown against Tampa Bay, most likely. And then lots of questions around the COVID protocols. I want to go ahead and switch gears just a little bit. That's kind of what happened last week, but there is a lot of stuff going on in the NBA. The NBA offseason, lots of things occurring. It's a very busy time. Lots of fun speculation that we can do. So I am going to bring in a special guest. Mr. Miguel is going to be joining us here as soon as we get him logged on and on the screen here. A lot of moving parts that we need to go through. Miguel, do I have you on? Yeah, I can, in fact. So I want to play a little game here with you, with the NBA.
Sure.
First
of all, before we start, I just want to say that was the best Colin Cowherd impersonation I've ever seen. Well done, sir.
Was it?
It was great. It was great. Hey,
okay, good.
Props to you. You carried the show by yourself for a good 5 solid minutes. I was waiting for the hot take that never came, but maybe next time. I appreciate it.
Fair enough. I like how you came out of the gate hot talking shit. That's good. That's a good first impression here. I appreciate that. Well, and your beard is looking, again, very Trailer Parkish, but well done with it.
Straight out of the trailer park, baby.
Definitely. That's not even a question. Okay, so let's talk a little basketball. Are you ready to talk basketball?
Yeah.
All right. So there's been some moves. The NBA draft has happened now at this point, so we're getting somewhat of a clearer picture of what's going down with the NBA season and who the front runners are, who got better, who got worse. So the game I want to play is who got better and who got worse. Are you down for that?
Right.
Wipe that smile off your face. I don't like it. It makes me feel weird.
Sorry, I'm 15 beers deep.
15 beers. That's very Trailer Parkish. Well done. All right, so let's start with the Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks.
Let's go.
Your take here. Better or worse? Let's talk about the moves. The big move for the Milwaukee Bucks is they shipped Eric Bledsoe and a load of draft picks over the next 5 to 6 years to New Orleans. Right. Multi-team trade with them and the Thunder in exchange for Drew Holiday. Are they better or worse?
Okay. Well, this is a team that I watched a lot last year. Of course, they're on TV all the time, but they're probably my number one betting team last year as well. I don't think they got any better or worse. I'm sorry to hedge my bets there, but gaining Drew Holiday over Eric Bledsoe isn't really. It's a win in the short term, yes, but is Drew Holiday going to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo for you? Probably not. It's not going to move the needle, and you're leveraging your future. Because let's be honest, do either of us believe that Giannis is going to be in Milwaukee in 2022, 2023?
Probably not.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I personally, I think he's going to Pat Riley in the Heat. That's just me. But I don't think Drew Holiday gets you over that edge to be like, for Giannis to be like, oh shit, they're building a contender around me. I feel like this is more of a lateral move, if anything else. They bungled the Bogdan move, who's now in Atlanta. That's a huge miss. Because that could have been a wing defender that you had there. They lost one of the Lopez brothers. I mean, for me, it's a lateral move. So, what are your thoughts?
So long term, I'm with you. I think long term, you just mortgaged your future. So I agree. I don't think Giannis stays past 2022. It will blow my mind a little bit if Giannis stays in Milwaukee. Because let's be real, being in Milwaukee, that's not very sexy. And someone of that caliber and that level of stardom, I don't see him staying in Milwaukee. So you're basically at this point said picks from 2021 to 2027, I believe, is the last draft swap that they have with the Pelicans for Drew Holiday. I like Drew Holiday. I think he's a good two-way player. He's a really good defender. So I don't want to downplay that. I think that's really good, and that's a good addition alongside Giannis and Chris Middleton. That's tough, though, to say we're mortgaging it all for him right now. So in the short term, I think they got better. I do think this next year they got better. They're better in 2021. But in 3 years, they could be just in the cellar of the East.
Well, doesn't it remind you of a former Brooklyn Nets team that leveraged their? I mean, it's a little bit. I mean, that Brooklyn Nets team didn't have Giannis, but I mean, they had Deron Williams. I mean, that was a good Nets team that leveraged their entire future for Paul Pierce, KG, and gave up all of their draft picks. And now look at the position the Celtics are in right now. Now, I'm not saying that's a one-for-one swap, but I'm saying that this could end up being the same scenario where the Bucks are in 2 or 3 years left with nothing. And for myself, I'm always looking for long-term play, right? So, yes, this is a team that was already competing for a championship with or without Drew Holiday. Does Drew Holiday get you over that hump? Does Drew Holiday beat Anthony Davis and
does Drew Holiday beat the Heat?
With Dennis Schroeder?
My question is, do they beat the Heat?
No.
Do they get over the hump to beat the Heat?
No.
Why not?
No. Get a better coach, and then maybe we'll talk about it.
Why were they your number one betting team? You kind of glossed over that.
Well, see, so what I personally like to do is I love myself some live bets. So the Bucks would love to get themselves down in some holes early on, and that's when I would just jump all over them, and knowing that they'd come back in the second quarter, and that's why I was all over them. So yeah, I was a heavy watcher of the Milwaukee Bucks, as well as my favorite personal team, the Boston Celtics, who I'd like to shift gears to, Kyle.
Okay, all right. So same game, better or worse? Talk to me about the Celtics.
Okay, so the first two out of the game aren't great because the first two. I'm gonna, for now, the Celtics I think are worse. Okay, they lost Gordon Hayward. That's not great. They lost Brad Wanamaker, who I didn't love anyway. They lost Vincent Poirier, who they never played, but could have been a factor this year. Now I don't think they're incredibly worse. Okay, so they still got with losing Gordon Hayward, they lost a former All-Star. But they gained a $27 million trade exemption there. Okay? So that means that the Celtics can go for any star they want. Now, do they have the assets to get that star? That's a whole other conversation. But if they are able to leverage that trade exception into getting another star, say Bradley Beal, then, of course, that's a win for the Celtics. I mean, come on. I mean, who wouldn't want another star on their team? With Jason Tatum.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of distinctions to make because you reference Gordon Hayward as a former All-Star. It's important to note he was a former All-Star when he was on the Jazz. Was that 3-4 years ago?
Correct. Of course.
Celtics. So
it wasn't even close with this.
Right.
Right.
So and some of that's due to injury. So I don't want to say that was entirely his fault. He had a really bad injury. These things happen, right? I do agree they got a little worse. But I do think there is some benefit to the unloading of that contract. Now, that being said, I still think they are a top 5 team in the East, maybe top 4. They're still competing, but I do think they got a little worse here. But if it ends up being a scenario where they don't get Bradley Beal or some other star that they can lure there in the next couple of years, then they're definitely worse for it. I think that's.
Let me give you a few points here on the Celtics. So the Celtics added Tristan Thompson, right, for a reasonable number, okay? And Tristan Thompson in 2019-2020 season, he had a career high in points, rebounds, 3-point percentage, and assists. Now, if he can improve on those and continue to get a little bit better, then yes. I mean, he's only 28 years old, Tristan Thompson. So
is he only 28?
Out of his prime yet? Yes, he is.
I don't know why I thought he was older than that. Feels like he's been around.
Whatever you want.
He's around.
I'm looking at it. Yeah, he has been. Now you're making me question myself.
You may be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. It surprises me that that's his age.
All right. Well, regardless, Tristan Thompson had a career high in those categories last year, and also he is 29 years old. So sorry,
okay.
29.
How dare you?
I know I'm an asshole, right?
You are.
But so here's the thing: is he's the prototypical center for the Brad Stevens offense. Brad Stevens ran the same type of offense when he had Al Horford, same kind of body build, 6'9". Now Tristan Thompson's a little bit more athletic than Al Horford is at the time Al Horford came to the Celtics, but he doesn't have the same range that Al Horford is. So I want to see how Tristan Thompson flows into that offense, and honestly, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited for this Celtics season. Being a fan myself, I can't wait.
I think that's fair. That there's some wait and see there with the Celtics. That's without a doubt. Clark, did you rejoin us finally?
I did. And first, let me just apologize to my guest, Miguel. I apologize, my co-host. We had some system difficulties. I'll put the blame squarely on myself in this instance, but I'm ready to roll.
Okay.
I agree with you with regards to the Celtics. I would take a wait and see, even though I don't know much about NBA. All I know is that the Celtics can never really get past the hump, if you know what I mean.
So you're a weird guy. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's talk 76ers. Okay.
Yes.
So 76ers. The big thing with the 76ers, and it's been tough because I look at the 76ers and it seems like they have talent on the team. However, you look at it, they have a 6'9" point guard who can't knock down a jumper. Joel Embiid looks like he's asleep half the time that he's on the court. You're not surrounded by shooters. There's a lot of clogging the middle. They went out and, first of all, new head coach and Doc Rivers. I love that. They signed Danny Green and Seth Curry, which that doesn't sound that sexy, but those are shooters who space the floor. I think that is huge for the 76ers. 76ers are way better in my mind. I think that they're poised to take a huge step forward this year. What say you, sir?
I say, that's a great point you made there. So I'm looking here and I'm looking at some stats for you. I'm just gonna give you some stats that I did some hard research on. Okay.
Okay.
So I see Joel Embiid off with Al Horford off the court, 14.5 points per game, 7.5 assists. 7.5 rebounds. With Al Horford on the court, 10.5 points per game, 5 rebounds. Okay. Now on the other side, Al Horford with Joel Embiid on the floor, 10 points per game, 5 rebounds. Without Joel Embiid on the floor, 10 points per game, 5 rebounds. With Joel Embiid, 2.5 points and 3 rebounds. Do you want to pay $27 million to a guy that's getting 2 points and 3 rebounds with your best player on the floor? No. You want to be able to play Al Horford with Joel Embiid. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for the Philadelphia 76ers. So they brought in the new general manager, Daryl Morey, who I think is the get of the offseason, right? Forget all the player names that moved. Daryl Morey is the number one person that moved this offseason. He is hands down one of the best GMs in the league, and he's exactly what the 76ers needed at this point in their franchise, okay? Now, him shipping off Al Horford for Danny Green is huge, okay? They get Danny Green, they get Seth Curry, they get Dwight to back up Embiid, and they get that floor spacing that they didn't have before, right? So now Al Horford's gone. Now you have a chance to spread that floor a little bit more, give the space to snap. Now we still don't know if Embiid and Simmons can share the floor, but I can tell you this: if they cannot, Daryl Morey will get a deal for Simmons and get his ass out quicker than you can think.
You think their guy moving forward is Joel Embiid, not Ben Simmons?
That's also a tough call. In my opinion, for me, it would be Joel Embiid. Only because in the modern NBA, to find a center like Embiid is a lot more difficult than finding a point guard, right? Now, Ben Simmons does amazing things. He's obviously a defensive player of the year candidate every year. But to have a Joel Embiid on your offense is just, you can't replace that. And it's not like he's a zero on defense either. He's also a great defender in his own right. But for me, it's Joel Embiid. How about yourself?
I have a problem with Joel Embiid there's two main things. The first being the NBA has moved away from defined positions. It's a positionless game right now. Lots of combo guards, stretch fours. The notion of the traditional center is not as prevalent as it was, even 10 years ago, right? I don't know if you hedge your bets on the traditional center versus a point guard that can get to the rim. Now, I'll say that the Ben Simmons concerns me due to the lack of being able to knock down a shot beyond like 17, 18 feet. That's concerning to me for your point guard. Like, you need to be able to hit that shot. But I think there's some effort questions in my mind from Joel Embiid. So I would hedge my bets on keeping Ben Simmons, but I think it's ultimately going to come down to the deal you get, because I don't know if they're in love with either of them or married to either of them.
Clark, who's your guy if you had to choose one between Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons? And you yourself admit you're a casual observer of the NBA. As a casual watcher, who would you rather have on your team?
Are you on mute, Clark? Clark's on mute again. Okay, so that's okay. All right, we'll circle back to Clark.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
can you guys
now
hear
I can.
Yeah.
Now
Okay.
I can.
Oh, geez. Apologize for that. What was the last gentleman's name?
Ben Simmons.
Yes, the Ben Simmons dude. And I'm going to tell you why. I really think this guy he's got more longevity and he's not prone to injury. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about the East here. So, Miguel, who comes out of the East?
Well, thank you, Colin. I would have to say who comes out of the East? I mean, the easy pick is the Bucks, right? I mean, it's just they're probably not, but I just have to say the Bucks. They have Giannis.
So, okay. I can hear that argument because I think if you look back to this past year, you didn't have a healthy Giannis in the bubble. And
not only that, it's the bubble. You can't take anything that happens in the bubble.
That's true. That's true. So I'm on board with the Bucks. I think we talked about this some last week, but the Bucks are my pick coming out of the East as well. Let's talk a little bit about the West. Did the Lakers repeat?
I mean, did you see their offseason? Holy shit. Yeah, of course they repeat. I mean, they are head and shoulders above any of their competition. And if anybody wants to throw out the LA Clippers out there, go fuck yourselves. You're crazy. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. No, the Lakers have it in space. But I will give you a team. That I think got better in the West. Okay. Now, and that's the Phoenix Suns. Now that's a playoff team in my opinion. Adding CP3, adding Jay Crowder, you have a veteran presence there, and now I think you are going to make that push into the playoffs that they've always wanted.
So you think Paul and Jay Crowder is enough to get there in the West?
Let me ask you a question. Did you see what CP3 did on the Oklahoma City Thunder last year?
I did in the bubble, but you just said that we can't take what happened in the bubble seriously.
But that wasn't in the bubble. He did it outside the bubble.
I think
they made the playoffs. Did you have the Thunder preseason?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. But there comes a point where Chris Paul will fall off. He's been in the NBA a while. He's got some miles. So I have a tough one. I have a tough time with that. I don't know. Well, I don't think he and Jay Crowder are enough.
We agree to disagree.
We can do that. I just want you to know you're wrong. You want to put something down on the Suns making the playoffs monetarily?
Yeah, I'll put your mortgage on it.
My mortgage. You're gonna put my mortgage on. Okay.
I'll put a steak dinner down. You can knock it down.
Steak dinner. If the Suns
or Burns at
Burns. Okay, steak dinner. If the Suns make the playoffs, I take you. If they don't, you're taking me.
And restaurant room included.
Well, I'm hearing. I'm getting disagreements from the listeners. I'm hearing that
what are they saying?
The West is saying the Nuggets and the Lakers for the West.
Yeah, it's what it just
well,
said.
I agree with that.
There's no way the Suns win the West.
The Suns aren't winning the West. We're just talking about if they even get in. Do they get invited to prom or not?
They get an ace seed. Yes.
I got you.
As the ace seed.
Is the pretty girl going to allow them to take them to prom? Like that? That's the question.
Yes,
the bell of the ball. The bell of the ball.
Yes. So okay. All right. So everyone heard it. Miguel and I, he's going to be taking me to a steak dinner. It'll be very romantic. Very romantic.
Well, everybody keeps saying you guys are sleeping on the Nuggets, so I don't know.
Nobody's
what the deal
sleeping
is
on the Nuggets.
I don't know.
The Nuggets are fine. They're probably going to be a second or third seed, but they're not going to beat the Lakers.
They're not going to beat the Lakers. Unless LeBron tears his ACL, they're not going to win.
Barring injury, they're not going to beat the Lakers. I mean, who did what? I just want to ask the listeners what made them get better in the offseason? What did they get?
Somebody in Colorado. They're just smoking a little bit on the side, clearly. Because look, Denver's going to be there. They're going to be in the mix. It's hard for me to pick anyone coming out of the West outside of the Lakers. It really is. That's a tough. That's a tough call for me. Okay, so we have picks from you, Lakers and Bucks, which I think we're in agreement on. I think that's an easy call.
And and to be fair to the listeners, that's such a lame pick, right?
Lakers, Bucks. I mean, okay. How about this? If it's not the Lakers,
okay,
who comes out of the West?
Then at that point, I would have to agree with the listeners. I think it's the Nuggets. Let's see Michael Porter Jr. in another full year. I think Michael Porter Jr. his ceiling is above anybody else on that team, including Jokic. I think he can be a MVP candidate in the future if he hits his ceiling.
Okay, what's his ceiling?
Good question.
I think his ceiling is MVP. Yeah. For sure.
But I mean
the thing about
what's the road? What's the road to getting there?
His 3-point percentage is there, right? I think he needs to learn how to get to the free throw line. He needs to learn how to navigate those lanes on the inside. He is such a good 3-point shooter for his size. I mean, that already makes him a mismatch, and especially if they play him at the 4, and even if they want to stretch him out to the 5, he is going to be a mismatch.
Do you think we see a bounce back from the Warriors this year, even sans Klay Thompson?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? You're right. I was sleeping on the Warriors a little bit. I do. I do see a bounce back from the Warriors. I mean, they drafted James Wiseman, right? He was granted, he played all of 2 games? I know he played more than that, but I mean, really, he played a marginal amount of games for Memphis. So we didn't really get to see him against elite competition because Memphis didn't really play anybody in that early stretch. But they had James Wiseman. They have Steph Curry still. And last thing I saw, Steph Curry can still shoot buckets, right?
Last time I checked.
Yeah. Okay. So Steph Curry can shoot buckets, and he can hit the shit out of a golf ball too.
I did see the match. He can, in fact, do that. It's unfair for that guy to have that much talent. I don't like it. It's upsetting.
Yeah. Now, do I think the Warriors make the Western Conference Finals? No, I do not. But of course they're a playoff contender.
Well, I definitely think they're a playoff contender. Because I think you don't need Wiseman to come in and be the guy. You really don't. You just need a contributor. Because I mean, it's still Steph Curry's team. Klay Thompson or no Klay Thompson. To your point, Steph Curry can still knock down anything within the gym. And so I think that's I think we could see some good things out of them too here. We've spent a long time on this, so I do want to just move on really quick for you here. The Harden drama continues in Houston. Where does James Harden end up, or does he stay in Houston?
So to our earlier point, with Philly. So if the Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid experiment doesn't work out, I like him in Philly. Imagine, a one. You could literally probably just do a 1-for-1 swap. I gotta check the contract math on it, but that's my first take on it. Is him going to Philly? Now I've seen reports saying that he wants to go to Brooklyn. Good luck. I mean, I would love for him to go to Brooklyn. Could you imagine that team just iso ball the entire time? Just guys dribbling around the corner, hoisting up threes. I mean, that would be the most boring shit I've ever seen in my life.
I don't want to see that. I honestly, I don't envy Steve Nash's job of trying to corral that team. That doesn't sound like a good time. That does, they'll win some regular season games. They'll feast off of nonsense Eastern Conference teams, but yeah, that doesn't work. I don't love. I don't know, man. I'd rather see him be in Houston or anywhere else that's not with 2 other ball dominant players, because all three of those players need the ball in their hands. Like none of them are off ball players.
Well, could you imagine him in Philly? I mean, what would be wrong with him in Philly?
Well, you would have to get rid of Ben Simmons because you can't.
Exactly, I know, but you'd be trading Ben Simmons.
But that's what I mean. That's the deal that has to happen. You can't ship out Embiid and expect Harden to play with Ben Simmons. Like I don't think that works. You'd have to do a Simmons for Harden.
Right.
Like, that would be the deal.
That's the only way it works. And honestly, I think that team wins the East.
Potential if that deal happened, and so we're talking Harden and then Joel Embiid. Yeah, right. that team does win the East. I would agree. I agree with that. Let's finish on this.
Okay.
Steal of the draft. So player outside of the top three, who do you have?
So a player outside of the top three that I have now still within the lottery is Killian Hayes, who went 7th to the Pistons. Okay, he's a guard out of Ulm, France, 6'5", averaged 11 points per game and 5 assists with a 6'8" wingspan. Okay, now he's a project. Okay, but he's the type of project that I think could eventually become, maybe a Manu type. Even I mean, this draft wasn't the biggest draft for home run potential, right? Everybody was just kind of basically trying to hit singles. Okay, nobody thought that there was a Giannis in here. Nobody thought that there was a game like a MVP here. But I think Killian Hayes has the opportunity to be that Manu type, even a D'Angelo Russell type. He already has a good step back, and I want to credit this article that I read by Kevin O'Connor that really turned me on to Killian Hayes from TheRinger.com. And if you really want to get a deep dive, he's a lefty. He's only 19 years old. So he's a project, but I think 2-3 years down the road, we're going to see Killian Hayes, making some headway there.
I like that pick. I have Obi Toppin, who is a power forward from Dayton, taken by the Knicks. Really athletic, can knock down an open shot. I agree. There's no home runs here, but I'm a big fan of athleticism. Now, I can't wait to see the Knicks screw that up because I'm sure they will, because that's just kind of what they do. But that's my steal of the draft. All right, man. Well, hey, look, that is it for us for NBA talk, man. So thank you for coming on, Mr. Miguel. We appreciate your trailer park insights.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that, Miguel. Appreciate it. A lot of the people on the chat room thought you looked like Vince Vaughn, so with a disheveled beard. So we appreciate you coming on, and we hope to have you come in again.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, before we move on, just a quick plug, guys. We are on Twitter and on Instagram at Wayne and Clark on both things. Follow along. You can hear me rambling about what's happening on NFL Sundays as I have really over-emotional reactions. So you can tell me how stupid I am live if you want. That's fine. Well, Clark, welcome back, sir. I'm glad to see you back.
It was a mess. I mean, listen, I'm starting to think that there was a couple of things going on. I want to even go as far as say sabotage, and the reason for that is because a couple of things. One, earlier today, which you weren't privy to, there was an announcement of a
All right. I think you're just digging this hole deeper right now. I think you're just digging the hole deeper. Okay. Well, let's we're gonna reset here. Let's get back to some NFL.
ever have stated that I knew anything about NBA, nor do I follow NBA. I have not. I never have. But I'm open to finding out new things about the NBA. And so, for those of you that thought you could actually trip me up by saying I didn't know anything about NBA, you're absolutely correct. And Captain Obviouses that are on the chat room, you're absolutely right. So, with that, let's move on to NFL.
Okay, let's talk tonight. Let's talk Monday Night Football.
Let's talk about Monday Night Football.
Okay.
It's going to be kind of like, it's one of those games where you've got a bipolar team that is a completely wreck of a team, which is the Philadelphia Eagles, with a completely, I don't know, like, what do they call that? The don't believe the hype. The biggest hype bust, I think, right now is a QB on the Philadelphia Eagles. I am not at all.
Well, he's
impressed.
Not playing tonight. I don't think he's playing tonight, is what I read.
Well, I'm not surprised at that, but here's the thing, though. They are what they are now because of the lack of leadership of that quarterback, and also too, when Nick Foles was the quarterback there, the team believed that they could win. They may not have been the best team, but they ended up winning a Super Bowl under Nick Foles, and I'll tell you why. They believed in their quarterback. They do not believe in this quarterback, and frankly, I do not think this guy gets a power ranking at all. I think that he's going to eventually just kind of disappear into the backup of quarterbacks. That's just my thoughts on that.
Someone can feel free to fact check me, but I think Jalen Hurts is playing tonight. Is what I think is happening. So I can't remember where I read that earlier, but I'm pretty sure that that's what's happening tonight, and Carson Wentz isn't playing. I do agree. He has not looked good. I mean, honestly, the NFC East in general hasn't been good. The Eagles definitely are no exception to that. So let's talk about the line. So again, just I want to be clear on when we talk about betting against the line.
Right.
We're talking about the spread here. So in this case, Seattle, as of this morning, was 6.5-point favorites over Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I were to choose Philly to cover the spread, I'm saying that Philly will either win or lose by less than 6.5 points. If I choose Seattle, I'm saying that I expect Seattle to win by more than 6.5 points, so 7 or more. Okay, so right now, the line is at Seattle favored by 6.5. Clark, who do you have?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I definitely don't have the Eagles. Those Eagles' wings will be clipped tonight, and I think it's going to get ugly. I definitely think it'll be probably, I would say, a 10-point deficit that they will not overcome, maybe even more.
Yeah, I have. So when I first saw this, I looked at the line of 6.5, and 6.5 is kind of that range where you're like, that the team that's given 6.5, like that's a pretty big margin in the betting world. You generally see what we expect to be close games at 2.5, 3 or so.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So 6.5, that took me back a little bit. And when you and I were kind of talking pre-show, I was initially like, man, I think Philly could cover that. But the more I think about it, I don't think Philly can cover that. 6.5, I think I have to take Seattle. I mean, Seattle's defense is pretty suspect. That they haven't looked good this year, but I have a hard time thinking that Russell Wilson can't put up enough points to beat Philly by 7 points or better.
Yeah,
I have a hard time betting that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think it's going to be a close game by any means.
So I think we're in agreement. I hate agreeing with you. I much prefer us to be able to talk trash, but I think that's the smart pick. I do want to look at 2 games from the upcoming week. So originally, I was going to talk again about the Steelers and Ravens because that game is now pushing into the next NFL week. But that game is boring now because apparently half of the Ravens are going to not be playing. So we're not even going to touch on that. I want to talk about the Rams and Cardinals. So the NFC West is kind of, we've thought of it as a pretty strong division most of the year, but Rams big loss this last week, as did the Cardinals, which was kind of surprising. But coming into this game, Rams are 3-point favorites over the Cardinals. Who you got?
I got the Cardinals, and I'll tell you why. Momentum. The Rams had a perfect opportunity to capitalize on a huge win, at least from a morale perspective, against Tom Brady and the Bucks. That was a game that was close, as you know. However, they got the W on there only to shit the bed the very next week. So for me, I think that it's not going to go well for the Rams.
They did look bad this last week, but don't
Correct.
forget the Cardinals gave up a game against the Patriots, which Miguel's not on here anymore, but he's going to have an aneurysm about this. But the Patriots aren't very good right now. Cam Newton's not very good right now, and somehow the Cardinals managed to lose that game while only scoring 17 points. That gives me a little bit of pause, ultimately. So,
well, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think that what you have is two teams that more than likely one will make it into the playoffs, one will not.
I think this game is going to greatly determine which one does.
I agree. I agree, and so I'm sticking with with the Cardinals.
Do you think Cardinals win outright, or do you think they just cover the 3-point spread?
No, I think they win outright.
I disagree. I'm going Rams. I don't think that they look like that 2 weeks in a row. And the Cardinals, I think that was some warning signs. I mean, Kyler Murray looks pretty good. It looks like he's going to have a solid future if he can avoid big hits while running the ball. But yeah, I have a hard time saying the Rams won't win by at least 3.
I think that they're going to walk away from the loss against the Patriots and say, we need to win this game. This is do or die. And maybe it's not, but I think that they go in with all cylinders working, and I think they pull a good win.
Okay, last one. Browns versus the Titans. Titans are favored by 5.5.
I'm going with the Browns, and I'm going to tell you why. The Browns, as dysfunctional as they have been throughout the myriad of years, throughout the decades of losses, of being the doormat of the basement of the NFL, this year they're actually doing what they've never been able to do, even with great talent. They have won games. Now, that being said, the loss of OBJ was Odell Beckham Jr. was a huge loss, I believe. However, instead of falling apart, they have galvanized the team, and they continue to thrive. They're winning games. Listen, they may be winning games against maybe mediocre teams. However, they are winning games. I pick the Browns.
Okay, so I'm going to say that I do pick the Browns to cover the 5.5-point spread. The Browns have won just like dirty, nasty, ugly games all year. So that's kind of their MO. So I would expect them to keep it tight here. So I pick them to cover. So I think they'll cover the spread, but I think the Titans win. And Derrick Henry is a big part of that to me.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry should, if we can get past this notion of quarterbacks only for MVP, Derrick Henry is the MVP this year. That is a man.
I agree with you. I'd be remiss not to cover some of the comments on the live chat. Mr. J says the Browns barely got by the Jaguars with Glennon. Yes, I did not say that he was getting wins with great teams. I said mediocre teams. However, they're still getting the W's, Mr. J. And by getting the W's, they're doing what they have not been able to do year after year, decade after decade, and pull out a winning season. And that looks to be all but assured this year. So, hey, we're in the year of COVID. Anything can happen. Angels, pigs flying, whatever you want to call it. In this instance, though, they're winning games, and they haven't been able to do that before. And this is why I think the Browns beat in this game. They're the ones to win this game.
Interesting. Okay, so we have picks. So let's just recap really quick. We both took Seattle tonight. And then I have Rams to cover spread. You have Cardinals to win outright. You have Browns to win outright. I have Browns to cover the spread, but Titans to win the game. So write it down, everyone. We'll revisit next week. Now, I know you wanted to talk a little boxing.
Yes, absolutely. But before I do that, I did want to point out that a couple of things. Obviously with my system issues and everything else that happened, I do want to point out how horrific the division is, where you have the Giants, who are arguably the bottom feeders of the NFL, and the Cowboys couldn't even get a W. It's just a complete and utter debacle, all around. Our Detroit pick was off, but then again, it wasn't that off because they ended up firing the coach and the general manager. So I think what's happened there is, again, the team is basically, the coach and the GM, or rather the coach, lost the team, and this is why they don't have a job in Detroit. Now, I'm not surprised about the Cowboys. The Cowboys continue to are just horrific. I don't think Mike McCarthy has a job if he doesn't get his shit together by next season.
I don't know if that's, I would agree. I think they'll fire him, but I don't know if that's all this is on Mike McCarthy. You can't have a scenario where you fired the head coach and then you kept all the assistants, which the Cowboys did.
Right. But I'm not saying that they're going to fire him this season. I said if they don't get their shiz together by next season, I think that there's going to be another clean house.
That seems fair.
So that's what I'm going to say there. Now, let's unpeel this Mike Tyson, Roy Jones fight. Nate, Nate, what's his name? Nate Robinson. Man, what a debacle. I know you didn't see the game, or rather see the fight. I did not either, but I did see the highlights. From what all intent purposes, I will say that, it was always going to be an exhibition fight, the Mike Tyson fight, the main card. However, it was very entertaining from the snippets that I saw, and from what I've heard throughout my sources that were live at the stadium, at the arena. Now, getting back to Nate Robinson, man, not a good look at all. That was just a complete debacle. I mean, the guy got just completely snuffed out, lights out, good night, bye-bye. And yeah, that was, man, Nate Robinson is never going to, the memes are being built. There'll be, the memes will be basically paying off mortgages on Nate Robinson. Now, did you end up seeing that the snippet where he got knocked out?
I did. I have a question, and this may be a question for the audience. So if somebody wants to message us on Twitter, or Instagram, or comment below, whatever. Did the Tyson fight? He's in his 50s now?
54.
54. Okay. What was this? Actually a good fight, or was this just kind of sad old men trying to hit each other? I don't know. I didn't see it, so I'm curious what the take is on that.
Well, I can tell you a couple of things. One, in talking to several different people that actually saw the actual fight from beginning to end, and in all the snippets that I've seen and all the different commentators' comments, it was actually a decent fight in that it was an exhibition. However, it was definitely a very strong showing for Mike Tyson for sure. It ended in a draw. However, I think everyone is in the consensus that if it was a real, scored, match, that Tyson would have won. But it was nevertheless considered what they call a draw. But you know what? 54 years old. Give Mike Tyson. I salute Mike Tyson. I give him credit. He ended up getting a $10 million and upwards purse. From what I understand, pay-per-view was through the roof on this thing. Yeah, through the roof. And he's donating most of it to charity. So I think Mike Tyson has definitely, he's hit a pinnacle in his life where he is basically rewriting history or writing a new path for his history. So I definitely I was impressed with from everything that I saw, it was a good matchup.
All right. Well, good take, sir.
Not so much for Nate Robinson though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't follow boxing very closely, so I don't even want to comment because it's going to be a comment out of ignorance. So
No,
go ahead and admit my shortcomings here.
No worries. And listen, I earlier it wasn't when you had the guest on Miguel, I kept quiet. Obviously, I had system issues, but again, NBA is not my forte. Never have presented myself to be an NBA expert. I'm not even a novice at that, but I am continuing to learn. And that's one of the things I come up on here, and I don't have any type of delusions with it pertaining what I do or do not know about NBA. Now, with regards to the NFL, we talked about Monday Night Football, but do you have any other thoughts as we move forward? Do you think the Steelers game gets played?
I think it has to get played eventually.
Right, but do you think it happens this week?
I don't know where else they push it, and unless the only eventuality, and I've heard this tossed around a few times, is if they could basically delay the playoffs a week and like build in a quote unquote bye week before the playoffs start to put games like this that you have to play later. And so that could happen. I wouldn't be surprised by it. I am still just very, very curious why this game is getting postponed, but the NFL led the Broncos out to slaughter with no quarterback. I don't know what the difference is here.
Yeah, I think that the difference was that the NFL made an example out of the Denver Broncos for not being consistently adhering to COVID-19 standards, and I think there's where you have the differences, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, maybe so, but man, look, I'm gonna always take an easy Saints win, so I'm not complaining. But like, you felt a little bit bad for this guy that just got ran out there. I mean, it was not a good game. Did you see it? Did you see any of it?
I saw the highlights. I mean, it was definitely
there weren't many highlights. It was really bad.
The QB I saw when he threw it an interception. That was pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, he did that a couple times. He had 2 interceptions and 1 completion. I mean, so I don't know. It wasn't a good look, I think, for the NFL at all.
No, not at all. Mr. J actually is reporting. He's one of my very valuable and loyal listeners. The reason the Ravens game is being postponed is because there's another outbreak. They've had to contain it before they put the team on the field. So it looks like that's going to also be the case. And it looks like for your Saints are getting fined $500,000 for COVID. Yeah, COVID violations, and Pat's only get $350,000 fine. So
yeah, I don't think this is the last the last of fines and draft picks lost that you're going to see through the end of the year for COVID violations. I agree. That's happening a ton because they were fining people at the beginning of the year for the whole like wearing your mask like this with the nose over the top, and I've seen a lot of players and coaches doing that still. I expect more fines to be coming here in the near future.
No, I agree.
Do you want to?
What about the spread?
The spread of what?
The spread of the COVID-19 in the playoffs. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's something that could have a lot of big implications for the timing of the Super Bowl as well.
I think the playoffs are going to be weird. I expect the Super Bowl to be even weirder because you're not going to see any of the events that you normally
leading up to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
there won't be those major press media days in the sense that there'll be hundreds of media players and entertainers. That's not going to happen.
No, I don't expect it. I don't expect it. We'll see. I think they're going to have to do some kind of like having an extra week somewhere to play some of these, makeup games.
Right.
I just can't see them not doing that.
Right.
You want to tell the listeners what we've got coming next week?
Hey, so we've got a lot of things to unpeel. I think the as we move into next week, we've got a lot of playoff implications. But Wayne, why don't you bring us give the listeners some tidbits of what we've got planned for them for next week?
So next week we're gonna be talking more NFL, primarily NFL, next week. So tune in for that. But we are going to be coming live in Clark's studio next week.
That's
both
right.
Of us. So that's gonna be really exciting stuff. And we're gonna do something live but socially distanced. It'll be good though. So I think we're really excited for that.
Yeah, and hopefully we won't have any gremlins in the old camera, and we won't have any issues from our producer as well. There's been some issues we have from a visual standpoint, but we'll work on that. Our producer is learning as he goes along with certain things, and so we'll continue to make sure he gets focused on presenting us in a great professional way.
Perfect. That's all I got today, Clark. You got any parting words that you want to share? Word of wisdom.
Listen, I want to say a couple of things. One, it's going to be a Clark on the check-in. You can find us at Twitter. And where is that handle at?
It's at Wayne and Clark on both Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. And also, look forward to, if you like what you've been hearing, hit that like button, and you can catch live episodes live at Ruckus Radio Podcast. And, again, you can also reach out to us on Instagram and in Twitter. And, we definitely look forward to another show, and we'll bring it to you live from the studio in Hollywood, Florida. And this is Clark signing out. Wayne, another great show. Appreciate everything. You want to give us the final sign off?
Just, go Saints. Who dat? Super Bowl 2021, sir. I'm leaving you with that.
All right. Well, you guys all take care. And be good. Be kind. And remember, you are watching The Sports Hub with Wayne